Geo wiped the sweat from his forehead and looked at the long row of storage containers in front of him. He had been working in the upper storage bay for almost 3 hours now, and his back was starting to hurt. The bay was hot, much hotter than the rest of the research station, and the air felt heavy. He was the only person there. Everyone else had finished their shifts and gone to dinner. He was new to this job. Just 3 weeks ago, he had graduated from the Interstellar Academy, and now he was working on Galactic Research Station Artemis 7. It was his first real job in space, and he wanted to do everything perfectly. His supervisor, Hannah, had asked him to organize the sample containers before tomorrow morning. Geo had said yes immediately, even though it meant working late. The storage bay was enormous. Metal shelves stretched up to the ceiling, which was at least 20 feet high. The containers were labeled with strange alien symbols that Geo was still learning to read. Some held plant samples from distant worlds. Others contained mineral specimens or frozen tissue samples. Everything had to be cataloged and placed in the right spot. Geo picked up another container and scanned its barcode. His handheld device beeped and showed him where it belonged. He walked to the correct shelf and reached up to place it. That was when he heard the sound. It was soft, almost like a bird chirping, but it sounded wrong somehow, distressed. Geo stopped moving and listened carefully. The sound came again, definitely coming from somewhere above him. He looked up at the ceiling. A maze of pipes and ventilation shafts ran across it, disappearing into the walls. The sound came a third time, clearer now. It was definitely a living creature, making that noise. Geo felt his heart beat faster. The station had strict rules about unauthorized life forms. Every creature on the station had to be registered and contained properly. If something was loose up there, he should report it immediately. But something made him hesitate. The sound was not aggressive or threatening. It sounded frightened. It sounded like something small and scared. Geo looked around the storage bay. There was a tall ladder leaning against the far wall. He walked over and dragged it across the floor. The metal scraped loudly, and the chirping sound stopped. Geo froze, afraid he had scared whatever was up there. He waited for a full minute, standing perfectly still. The chirping started again, quieter this time, almost like whimpering. Geo positioned the ladder under the ventilation shaft where the sound was coming from. He climbed slowly, one rung at a time. The ladder wobbled slightly under his weight, but it held steady. As he got higher, the air grew warmer. Heat from the ventilation system made his skin prickle with sweat. When he reached the top of the ladder, he could see into the space between the large pipes. His breath caught in his throat. There, wedged between two thick pipes, was a creature unlike anything Geo had ever seen before. It was small, about the size of a house cat, with a long serpentine body covered in scales. The scales shimmered in the dim light, looking almost silver. The creature had 4 small legs, each ending in delicate claws. Its wings were folded against its body, thin membranes that looked almost transparent. But what struck Geo most were its eyes. They were large and golden, with vertical pupils like a cat. Those eyes stared at him with such fear and intelligence that Geo felt his chest tighten. This was not just an animal. This was a thinking, feeling being. The creature made the chirping sound again, pressing itself further back against the pipes. Geo could see that one of its wings was bent at an odd angle, possibly injured. Its body looked thin, too thin. The creature was starving. Geo's mind raced. He knew what this was. He had studied xenobiology at the academy. This was a drachmer, sometimes called a space dragon by humans. They were rare, incredibly rare. Geo had never expected to see one in person. The drachmer were protected by galactic law because they were endangered. Hunting them was illegal across all civilized systems. So what was a baby drachmer doing here, alone and injured, hiding in the ventilation system of a research station? The answer came to him quickly and made him feel sick. Smugglers. There was a black market for drachmer scales. They were worth a fortune. Someone must have brought this baby onto the station illegally, and somehow it had escaped. If he reported this right now, what would happen? The station security would come. They would take the creature. They would start an investigation. But would they help the baby dragon, or would they just return it to whoever brought it here? The wrong people might claim it was their legal property. Geo had heard stories about how complicated galactic law could be. The baby Drachmer chirped again, softer now. It was watching him carefully. Geo slowly raised his hands, palms out, trying to show he meant no harm. The creature tilted its head, studying him. Geo made a decision. He would help this creature first. Then he would figure out what to do next. He climbed down the ladder carefully and went to his bag near the door. He pulled out his lunchbox. He had not eaten yet, too focused on work. Inside was a sandwich with meat and cheese. He had no idea if Drachmer could eat human food, but it was worth trying. He climbed back up the ladder, moving slowly so he would not scare the creature. When he reached the top, the baby dragon was still there, watching him. Geo opened the lunchbox and took out a piece of meat from a sandwich. He held it out at arm's length, the creature's golden eyes fixed on the food. Its nostrils flared as it smelled the meat. Geo could see how hungry it was. Slowly, very slowly, the baby Drachmer stretched its neck forward. Its movements were shaky, weak from hunger and fear. Geo stayed perfectly still. He barely breathed. The creature came closer, inch by inch, until its nose almost touched the meat. Then, in one quick movement, it snatched the food from his fingers and pulled back. Geo smiled. He tore off another piece and held it out. This time, the creature came forward a little faster. They repeated this process several times. Each time, the baby Drachmer grew a bit braver. After the meat was gone, Geo spoke the first time. His voice was soft and gentle. He did not know if the creature could understand his words, but it seemed to understand his tone. The baby Drachmer looked at him with those intelligent golden eyes. Then, to Geo's surprise, it moved forward and climbed onto his shoulder. The creature was so light, barely weighing anything at all. It wrapped its long tail around Geo's arm for balance and pressed its small body against his neck. Geo could feel it trembling. He climbed down the ladder very carefully, one hand holding the creature against his shoulder. When he reached the ground, the baby Drachmer was still there, clinging to him. It made a soft purring sound, like contentment mixed with exhaustion. Geo looked around the empty storage bay. He had to hide this creature somewhere safe. He had to help it. Whatever happened next, he knew one thing for certain. He could not let anything bad happen to this small, frightened being that had trusted him enough to accept his help. He grabbed his bag and walked toward the door, the baby dragon still perched on his shoulder. His simple task of organizing containers had turned into something much bigger, something that might change everything. Geo's quarters were small, just a single room with a bed, a desk, and a tiny bathroom. But right now, it felt even smaller with the baby dragon sitting on his desk, watching him with those bright golden eyes. He had managed to sneak through the corridors without anyone seeing them. Most of the crew was at dinner, and the hallways were empty. The creature looked around the room with curiosity. It sniffed at his datapad, then at a stack of books he kept by his bed. When it found a warm spot near his desk lamp, it settled down and wrapped its tail around itself. The trembling had stopped, but Geo could still see how thin and weak it looked. He sat on his bed and opened his work tablet. His hand shook slightly as he typed into the station's database. He needed to learn everything he could about Drachmer. If he was going to help this creature, he needed to know what it needed to survive. The information that came up made his stomach twist with worry. Drachmer were one of the rarest species in the known galaxy. They came from a distant world called Drachmer Prime, a planet with thick forests and vast mountain ranges. The species was highly intelligent. Some scientists believed they were as smart as humans or even smarter. They lived in family groups and communicated through a complex system of sounds and emotions. But what made Geo's heart sink was the next part. Drachmer scales were worth thousands of credits on the black market. They were used in expensive jewelry and traditional medicines, even though there was no proof the medicines actually worked. Poachers had hunted the Drachmer almost to extinction. The Galactic Council had made it illegal to hunt, capture, or sell them 30 years ago, but the black market still existed. Baby Drachmer were especially vulnerable. They bonded with their parents within hours of hatching and needed constant care. Without their family, many baby Drachmer died from stress and loneliness. Those that survived often ended up in the hands of smugglers who sold them to private collectors. Geo looked at the small creature on his desk. It was grooming its scales with its tongue, trying to clean itself. His chest felt tight. This baby was alone, injured and far from home. Someone had stolen it from its family and brought it here to sell. He needed a name for it. He could not keep thinking of it as the creature or the dragon. Looking at its silver scales that shimmered like starlight, he thought of the Korean word for star. Bayal. It felt right. Bayal, he said softly. The dragon's head turned toward him, ears perking up. Is that okay? Can I call you Bayal? The dragon made a soft chirping sound, almost like agreement. Geo smiled despite his worry. He spent the next hour reading everything he could find about drachma care. They needed protein-rich food, preferably fresh meat. They needed warmth and a safe place to sleep. Most importantly, they needed emotional connection. The articles emphasized this over and over. Drachma were deeply emotional creatures. Isolation could kill them faster than starvation. Geo glanced at his clock. It was getting late. He needed to sleep because he had an early shift tomorrow. But first, he needed to make Bayal comfortable. He pulled a spare blanket from his closet and made a nest in the corner of his room, away from the door. He placed Bayal gently in the nest. The dragon circled a few times, then curled up with a contented sigh. That night, Geo barely slept. Every sound made him jump, afraid someone would discover his secret. But Bayal slept peacefully, occasionally making small chirping sounds in her sleep. The next morning, Geo woke early and fed Bayal some emergency ration bars that contained protein. She ate eagerly, then climbed back onto his shoulder as he got ready for work. He gently placed her back in the nest before leaving. Stay here, he told her. Stay quiet. I'll come back soon. Work that day was torture. Geo could barely focus on his tasks. His mind kept drifting back to his quarters, wondering if Bayal was okay. His supervisor, Hannah, noticed his distraction. Geo, are you feeling well? She asked. She was a stern woman in her 40s with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Yes, I'm fine, Geo said quickly. Just tired from working late yesterday. Hannah studied him for a moment. You did excellent work organizing the storage bay. But don't push yourself too hard. You're still new here. Geo nodded and tried to focus better on his work. But it was difficult. During his lunch break, he rushed back to his quarters. Bayal was awake and clearly happy to see him. She chirped excitedly and climbed onto his arm. For the next 3 days, Geo managed to keep his secret. He snuck food from the cafeteria for Bayal. He spent every free moment in his quarters, researching and caring for her. Bayal grew stronger each day. Her injured wing seemed to be healing, and she was moving with more energy. But on the 4th day, everything changed. Geo had just finished his shift and was heading back to his quarters when he ran into his friend Myri in the corridor. Myri was also an intern, working in the engineering department. They had arrived on the station around the same time and had become friends quickly. Geo, I haven't seen you in days, Myri said, smiling. You missed game night. Are you avoiding us? No, I've just been busy, Geo said, trying to sound casual. Busy with what? We're interns. We just sort things and file reports. Myri laughed. Come on, let's grab dinner together. You look like you haven't eaten properly in days. Geo hesitated. He was hungry, and Bayal would be fine alone for another hour. Okay, but I need to drop something off in my room first. I'll come with you, Myri said cheerfully. I want to see how you've decorated your quarters. Mine is so boring. Geo's heart sank, but he could not think of a good excuse to refuse. They walked to his quarters together. His mind raced, trying to think of a way to keep Myri from coming inside. But before he could say anything, she had already stepped through the door after him. Oh, it's about the same size as mine, Myri was saying. Then she stopped. Her eyes went wide. Geo, what is that? Bayal was sitting on the desk, her scales catching the light. She chirped curiously at the new person. Geo closed the door quickly and locked it. Myri, please, let me explain. Is that a drachma? Myri whispered, her voice shaking. Geo, do you know how illegal this is? Where did you find it? I found her in the storage bay 4 days ago. She was injured and starving. Someone smuggled her onto the station. The words tumbled out of Jiho's mouth. I know I should have reported it, but I was afraid. What if they returned her to the smugglers? What if no one believed me? Myri stood frozen, staring at Baiyal. The dragon tilted her head and made a soft, questioning sound. Slowly, Myri stepped closer. She held out her hand carefully. Baiyal sniffed her fingers, then allowed Myri to gently touch her head. She's beautiful. Myri breathed. I've never seen anything like her. Her name is Baiyal, Jiho said quietly. Myri turned to look at him. Her expression was serious now. Jiho, we need to report this. There are smugglers on this station. This is dangerous. I know, but we need to be smart about it. If we just report to security, they might ask the wrong questions to the wrong people. Jiho ran his hand through his hair. I've been researching. There's been an increase in smuggling activity at this station over the past 6 months. Someone is using Artemis 7 as a transit point. How do you know that? I've been reading security reports. They're available to all staff members if you know where to look. Jiho pulled up his tablet and showed her. Look at this. 3 weeks ago, security received an anonymous tip about illegal cargo on a merchant ship. They searched it but found nothing. 2 weeks before that, another tip, another search, nothing found. The smugglers are careful. Myri sat down on his bed, processing everything. Baiyal hopped off the desk and walked over to her, climbing onto her lap. Myri instinctively put her hands around the dragon to support her. What do you want to do? Myri asked finally. I want to find out who brought her here. I want evidence. Then we can go to security with proof, and they can't just sweep it under the rug or return Baiyal to the wrong people. Myri looked down at Baiyal, who had curled up in her lap and was purring softly. She sighed. This is crazy. We could get expelled from the internship program. We could face criminal charges for hiding her. I know, but you're right. We can't just trust that the system will protect her. Myri looked up at Jiho. Okay, I'll help you, but we need a plan. Relief flooded through Jiho. He was not alone anymore. They spent the next hour discussing what to do. Myri would use her access to the engineering systems to check the station's docking records. Jiho would continue researching drachma care and looking for patterns in the security reports. As Myri left that evening, she paused at the door. Jiho, be careful and take care of her. She's special. I will, Jiho promised. After Myri left, Jiho sat on the floor next to Baiyal's nest. The dragon climbed out and settled in his lap, her warmth comforting. He stroked her scales gently. It's going to be okay, he whispered. We're going to figure this out. Baiyal looked up at him with complete trust in her golden eyes. In that moment, Jiho knew he would do whatever it took to keep her safe. 2 days had passed since Myri discovered Baiyal, and things were getting worse. Jiho sat at his desk, watching Baiyal with growing fear. The little dragon lay in her nest, barely moving. She had stopped eating that morning, refusing even the fresh meat he had managed to get from the cafeteria. Her scales, which had started to look brighter and healthier, now seemed dull. Her golden eyes were half closed, and she made weak, sad sound that broke Jiho's heart. He had messaged Myri an hour ago. She arrived quickly, slipping into his quarters with a worried expression. She's getting worse, Jiho said, his voice cracking. I don't know what's wrong. I've given her food, water, warmth. Everything the research says she needs. Myri knelt beside the nest and gently touched Baiyal. The dragon barely reacted. Have you found anything new in your research? I've been reading for hours. Jiho pulled up his tablet, showing page after page of notes. Wait, I found something yesterday, but I thought it couldn't be that important. Let me find it again. He scrolled through his files until he found the right document. It was an old research paper written by a xenobiologist who had studied drachma in their natural habitat. Jiho read aloud, his voice shaking. Young drachma require more than physical care. They need emotional validation through specific vocalizations from their guardians. Without these heart words, juvenile drachma can experience profound distress. In severe cases, they fall into a state similar to depression, which can be fatal within days. Heart words. Myri looked confused. What does that mean? Jiho kept reading. The paper says Drachma parents speak to their young constantly, expressing protection, belonging, and love. It's not about the specific language, but about the emotional intent behind the words. The baby Drachma can sense the feelings. Without this emotional connection, they lose the will to live. So, Bayal is dying because she feels alone? Myri's eyes fill with tears. Even though you've been taking care of her? I've been feeding her and keeping her safe, but I haven't been talking to her. Not really. I've been so worried about hiding her and finding the smugglers that I forgot she needs more than just food and shelter. Gio felt sick with guilt. She needs to know she belongs somewhere, that someone cares about her. He moved to the nest and carefully picked up Bayal. She was so light, even lighter than before. He held her against his chest and felt her weak heartbeat. What do I do? He asked desperately. How do I give her what she needs? Myri wiped her eyes. The paper says it's about emotional intent, right? So just talk to her. Tell her what you feel. Be honest. Gio looked down at Bayal. Her eyes were closed now. He could feel her breathing, slow and shallow. Panic rose in his chest. He had to do something. He had to try. Bayal, he whispered. Please don't give up. I'm sorry I didn't understand what you needed. I'm sorry I've been so focused on other things. The dragon didn't respond. Gio felt tears running down his face. I know you're scared, he continued, his voice soft. I know you miss your family. I can't bring them back, and I'm sorry. But you're not alone. You have me. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. Still nothing. Bayal's breathing seemed to get even slower. Myri put her hand on Gio's shoulder, offering silent support. Gio closed his eyes and thought about everything he had been feeling over the past week. The fear when he first found Bayal, the determination to protect her, the joy when she first trusted him enough to eat from his hand, the connection he had felt growing between them, something deeper than he could explain with words. He opened his eyes and spoke again, this time in Korean. It was his first language, the language of his childhood, the language that felt most natural when expressing deep emotions. You're safe now, he said softly in Korean. You're not alone anymore. I see you. I see how scared you are, how brave you've been. You survived something terrible, and you're still fighting. Don't stop fighting, Bayal. Please. He felt a small movement against his chest. Bayal's head shifted slightly. I promise I'll take care of you, Gio continued, the words flowing more easily now. I promise I'll protect you. You belong here with me. You're wanted. You're important. You matter. Bayal's eyes opened slightly. The golden color seemed a little brighter. That's it, Myri whispered encouragingly. Keep talking to her. Gio spent the next hour holding Bayal and speaking to her. He told her about his childhood in Korea, about his family, about his dreams of working in space. He told her about the stars he loved to watch, about the beauty of different worlds he hoped to visit someday. He told her she would come with him, that they would see those worlds together. Sometimes he spoke in Korean, sometimes in English. It didn't matter. What mattered was the feeling behind the words. He poured everything into his voice, all his care and concern and determination to keep her safe. Slowly, Bayal began to respond. Her breathing deepened. Her eyes opened wider. She made a small chirping sound, weak but unmistakable. It sounded like a question. Yes, Gio answered, though he didn't know what she was asking. Yes, I mean it, every word. As the hours passed, Bayal grew stronger. She lifted her head and looked at Gio directly. Then something amazing happened. Her scales began to glow. It was faint at first, just a slight luminescence, like moonlight on water. But it grew brighter, spreading across her entire body. Gio, look. Myri gasped. She's glowing. Gio stared in wonder. The research papers had mentioned this, but he had thought it was rare. Bioluminescence in Drachma was a sign of deep contentment and bonding. It meant Bayal had accepted him. Truly accepted him, not just as someone who fed her, but as her guardian. Bayal made a new sound, a deep purring that vibrated through her whole body. She pressed her head against Gio's hand. The glow from her scales filled the small room with soft, silvery light. "I think she just bonded with you," Myri said quietly. "Like, really bonded, the way she would with her actual parent." Geo felt the weight of that responsibility settle on his shoulders. This wasn't just about keeping Bayal safe until they could figure out what to do with her. This was permanent. This connection they had just formed was real and deep. He was responsible for her now, completely. "I won't let you down," he promised Bayal. "Whatever happens, we'll face it together." The dragon's glow brightened in response, and she climbed up onto his shoulder, her favorite spot. She felt heavier now, more solid, as if the emotional connection had given her physical strength as well. Myri's communication device beeped. She checked it, and her expression changed to alarm. "Jiho, we have a problem. Station security just sent out an alert. They're looking for a dangerous creature that escaped from the cargo bay. The description matches Bayal." "What?" Jiho's stomach dropped. "Who reported it?" "It says here a merchant ship filed a complaint. They claim their legal property was stolen." Myri looked up at him. "The smugglers know she's missing. They're using the authorities to search for her. Can they do that if they smuggled her illegally? They must have fake papers. Documentation saying they acquired her legally." Myri paced a small room. "This is bad, Geo. Security will start searching the entire station. They'll check every room, including crew quarters." Geo held Bayal closer. The dragon sensed his fear and pressed against his neck, her glow dimming slightly. "We can't let them take her. We just can't. Then we need to move faster. I've been checking the docking records like we planned. There's a merchant ship called the Stellar Wind that's been here for almost 2 weeks. That's unusually long for a cargo ship. They keep requesting extensions on their docking time, claiming equipment problems." Myri pulled up the information on her device. "I think that's their ship. Can we prove it?" "Not yet. But if we can get close to their cargo area, maybe we can find something. Evidence of smuggling, other creatures, anything." Geo thought quickly. His mind was clearer now than it had been in days. The bond with Bayal had changed something in him. He felt stronger, more focused. "What about your supervisor? The one in engineering? Does she have access to the cargo bay monitoring systems?" "Probably." "Why?" "Because we need someone with authority on our side. Someone who can help us when we find evidence." Geo looked at Myri. "What about Hannah? My supervisor? She's strict, but she's fair. And I think she already suspects something is wrong." As if summoned by her name, there was a sharp knock on Jiho's door. Both of them froze. Bayal's scales flickered with alarm. "Jiho, I know you're in there. We need to talk." It was Hannah's voice, firm and commanding. "I know you're hiding something, and I think I know what it is. Open this door right now, or I'm overriding the lock." Jiho and Myri looked at each other. They were out of time. The secret was about to come out, whether they were ready or not. Jiho took a deep breath. Bayal chirped softly against his neck, and he felt courage flow through him from their bond. He walked to the door and opened it. Hannah stood in the corridor, her arms crossed, her expression severe. But when she saw Bayal perched on Jiho's shoulder, glowing softly in the dim light, her stern expression shifted to something else. Surprise, wonder, and understanding all crossed her face in quick succession. "I knew it," she said quietly. "I knew you were protecting something. May I come in?" Jiho stepped aside. Hannah entered, and the door closed behind her. The three of them stood in the small room, with Bayal watching the newcomer carefully. "Start from the beginning," Hannah said. "Tell me everything." And so Jiho did. Jiho told Hannah everything. He explained how he found Bayal in the storage bay, injured and starving. He described the past week of hiding her, researching her species, and learning about the smuggling that threatened her life. Myri added details about the suspicious merchant ship and the fake security reports. Through it all, Hannah listened without interrupting, her face unreadable. When they finished, silence filled the room. Bayal chirped nervously from Jiho's shoulder, her glow dimming. Jiho held his breath, waiting for Hannah to tell him he was fired, or worse, that she would report him to security immediately. Instead, Hannah did something unexpected. She smiled just slightly. "You stupid brave boy," she said softly. "Do you have any idea how much trouble you're in?" "Yes," Gio said honestly. "And you did it anyway, to protect her." Hannah stepped closer and held out her hand to Bayal. The dragon sniffed her fingers cautiously, then allowed Hannah to stroke her head. "I've been a xenobiologist for 20 years. I've never seen a drachma in person. They're supposed to be extinct in most sectors. Someone stole her from her family," Jiho said. "I couldn't just let them keep her or sell her." Hannah sighed and sat on the edge of his bed. "I've suspected smuggling activity on this station for months. I reported it to security, but they said there wasn't enough evidence. Every time they searched a suspicious ship, they found nothing. The smugglers are clever." "You believe us?" Myri asked, surprised. "Of course I believe you. I've been watching Gio all week. He's been exhausted, distracted, sneaking food from the cafeteria. I knew something was wrong." Hannah looked at them both seriously. "But now we have a bigger problem. Security is actively searching for Bayal. If they find her, the smugglers will claim ownership with their fake documents. The station administration won't question it too deeply. They'll want to avoid an incident. So what do we do?" Jiho felt desperation rising in his chest. "We expose the smugglers before they can take her. We need solid proof of their illegal activities." Hannah stood up and began pacing. "Myri, you said the ship is called the Stellar Wind?" "Yes. It's been docked at Base 17 for almost 2 weeks. That's unusual. Most cargo ships stay for a day or two at most." Hannah pulled out her own tablet and began typing. "I have access to some security systems that you don't. Let me check something." She worked in silence for several minutes while Jiho and Myri waited anxiously. Bayal seemed to sense the tension and pressed closer to Jiho's neck. "Interesting," Hannah said finally. "The Stellar Wind has been flagged 3 times in the past year by different stations for suspicious cargo. But each time, the investigations found nothing. The captain's name is Tarek Voss. He has a clean record, at least officially. Can we search their ship?" Myri asked. "Not without probable cause. And the smugglers have already filed their complaint, which gives them a legitimate reason to be here." Hannah frowned, thinking hard. "But there might be another way. We need to make them reveal themselves." "How?" Gio asked. Hannah looked at Bayal, then at Jiho. "We let them find her, but on our terms, with witnesses and recording devices. We need them to incriminate themselves." "That's too dangerous," Gio said immediately. "What if something goes wrong? What if they just take her?" "I won't let that happen. But Jiho, you need to trust me." Hannah's expression was serious. "I've been investigating smugglers for years. I know how they operate. They're greedy and arrogant. If we offer them what they want, they'll get careless." Myri stepped forward. "What's your plan?" Over the next hour, they worked out the details. Hannah would contact Captain Trevik, the head of station security. Trevik was a Thalian, a reptilian species known for a strong sense of justice. Hannah trusted him because he had helped her with investigations before. They would arrange a control meeting in one of the cargo bays. Jiho would bring Bayal, pretending he was willing to turn her over to the smugglers. Hidden cameras and microphones would record everything. If the smugglers admitted any illegal activity, Trevik would arrest them immediately. What if they don't say anything incriminating? Gio asked, his stomach churning at the thought of putting Bayal in danger. They will. Smugglers like to brag. They can't help themselves. Hannah placed a hand on his shoulder. I know this is scary, but it's the only way to protect Bayal long term. If we don't stop these smugglers, they'll keep hunting her. Even if you hide her for months, they'll eventually find her. Gio looked down at Bayal. The little dragon looked back at him with complete trust in her golden eyes. He thought about the bond they had formed, the promises he had made to protect her. This was the only way to keep those promises. Okay, he said quietly. Let's do it. Captain Trevik arrived at Hannah's request an hour later. He was tall and imposing, with dark green scales and sharp amber eyes. When he saw Bayal, he made a hissing sound of surprise. A drachma hatchling. I thought I would never see one. He looked at Jiho with what might have been respect. You save her life, young human. That takes courage. Will you help us? Jiho asked. Yes. These smugglers have been operating on my station for too long. It's time to end this. Trevik's voice was firm. I will contact the Stellar Wind and arrange a meeting. We'll tell them we found their lost property, and they can retrieve it from Cargo Bay 5. That bay has the best surveillance equipment. Everything happened quickly after that. Trevik made the call. The smugglers agreed to meet in 2 hours. Hannah, Myri, and several of Trevik's trusted security officers began setting up the cargo bay with hidden cameras and microphones. Jiho stayed in his quarters with Bayal, trying to calm his racing heart. He held Bayal close and spoke to her softly in Korean, the way he had learned she needed. We're going to face something scary soon, but I'll be right there with you. I won't let anyone hurt you. I promise. Bayal's scales glowed softly, and she made her purring sound. She understood, or at least she understood that he would protect her. When it was time, Jiho carried Bayal to Cargo Bay 5. His hands shook, but he forced himself to stay calm. The cargo bay was large and cold, filled with storage containers and equipment. Hannah and Trevik were waiting near the entrance. Security officers were hidden behind containers, out of sight, but ready to move. Remember, Trevik said quietly, keep them talking. The more they say, the better. I understand, Jiho said. The cargo bay doors opened, and 3 figures walked in. The first was a tall human man with gray hair and cold blue eyes. He wore expensive clothes and moved with confidence. Behind him were 2 others, a burly alien with 4 arms and another human woman with a scar across her cheek. I'm Captain Voss, the gray-haired man said. His voice was smooth and pleasant, but his eyes were hard. I understand you have something that belongs to me. Bayal hissed from Jiho's shoulder, her scales flickering with alarm. She recognized danger. This drachma was found on the station. Trevik said formally, You claim it's your property? I have documentation proving legal acquisition. Voss pulled out a datapad and held it up. Everything is in order. The hatchling was purchased from a licensed breeder on Cavro Station. That's a lie, Jiho said, unable to stop himself. Drachma breeding is illegal. Everyone knows that. Voss smiled coldly. There are always exceptions for scientific research. My company has the proper permits. Then you won't mind if we verify those permits? Trevik asked. Not at all, though it will take time to process through official channels. In the meantime, I'd like my property back. Voss gestured to Bayal. The creature has value, and I've wasted enough time looking for it. Value? Jiho's voice shook with anger. She's not a thing. She's intelligent. She feels emotions. You stole her from her family. Careful, boy, the woman with the scar said, stepping forward. You're in enough trouble already for theft. Voss held up a hand, stopping her. He looked at Jiho with something like amusement. You've bonded with it, haven't you? I can tell by the way it glows. That's unfortunate. Drachma scales are worth more when the creature is calm and healthy. Your attachment actually increased its value. So you admit you plan to kill her for her scales? Hannah spoke up from the side. Voss turned to her, his expression unchanged. I admit nothing. But hypothetically, if someone were in the business of exotic materials, a bonded drachma would fetch an excellent price from the right buyers. The scales of a bonded individual have unique properties. You're describing illegal poaching, Trevik said, his voice hard. I'm describing a hypothetical business discussion. Voss smiled. Now, if you're done with this performance, I'd like what I came for. Jiho held Bayal tighter. The dragon was trembling against his neck, but her scales were glowing brighter, responding to his determination to protect her. Voss took a step forward, and suddenly Bayal reacted. She released a pulse of pure psychic energy, a wave of fear and distress that hit everyone in the room. Jiho felt it wash over him, but it didn't affect him the same way. The bond protected him, but the smugglers staggered back, their faces twisted in terror. The 4-armed alien collapsed to his knees, making a whimpering sound. The woman grabbed her head and screamed. Voss stumbled and fell backward, his confident expression replaced with pure panic. Now! Trevik shouted. Security officers emerged from their hiding spots, weapons drawn. They surrounded the smugglers quickly and efficiently. Voss tried to run, but two officers caught him easily. Within moments, all three smugglers were restrained. Trevik walked over to Voss and pulled him to his feet. Captain Tarek Voss, you're under arrest for illegal wildlife trafficking, smuggling, and attempted poaching of an endangered species. Everything you said was recorded. You can't do this. Voss snarled, his smooth demeanor completely gone. I have powerful friends. I have connections. Then they can visit you in prison, Trevik said coldly. He looked at his officers. Take them away and search their ship. I want every piece of evidence you can find. As the smugglers were dragged out of the cargo bay, Jiho finally allowed himself to breathe. Baiyal stopped glowing and made a soft, tired sound. She had protected him, using abilities Jiho hadn't even known she possessed. Hannah came over and put her hand on his shoulder. It's over. You did it. But even as relief flooded through him, Jiho knew this was just the beginning. They had stopped the smugglers. But now came the harder question. What would happen to Baiyal now? 3 days after the smugglers were arrested, Jiho sat in a conference room that felt too big and too formal. Baiyal was on his shoulder, her tail wrapped around his arm for security. Around the table sat people who would decide her future. Captain Trevik was there, along with Hannah, the station administrator, and two officials in the Galactic Council who had arrived that morning via fast transport ship. The older council official, a tall woman with silver hair named Administrator Chun, spoke first. We've reviewed the case thoroughly. Jiho, you saved this Drachma's life and exposed a dangerous smuggling ring. The Galactic Council commends your actions. Thank you, Jiho said quietly. His stomach was tight with anxiety. Commendations didn't matter. Only Baiyal mattered. However, the second official continued, a stern man named Director Quan. We must now address the matter of the Drachma's future. Galactic law is very clear. Endangered species must be returned to their homeworld when possible. Jiho had known this was coming, but hearing it still felt like a punch to his chest. Baiyal chirped softly, sensing his distress. Drachma Prime is 3 months away by standard transport, Administrator Chin said gently. We've already contacted the Drachma authorities there. They're very concerned about this hatchling and want to return safely. I understand, Jiho said, though his voice cracked slightly. He stroked Baiyal's head softly. She pressed against his hand, trusting him completely. There's a complication, Hannah spoke up. The bond between Jiho and this Drachma is genuine and deep. Separating them could harm both of them, especially the hatchling. She nearly died before they bonded. Breaking that bond might put her life at risk again. Director Quan frowned. We're aware of the bond. It's unfortunate, but the law must be followed. The Drachma belongs with her own species. She has a name, Jiho said suddenly, surprising himself with his boldness. Her name is Baiyal. She's not just a species or a law case. She's a person. The room fell silent. Administrator Chin looked at Jiho with something like sympathy in her eyes. You care about her very much, she said softly. She's everything. Jiho replied honestly. When I found her, she was dying, not just from hunger, but from loneliness and fear. I gave her what she needed. I spoke the words she needed to hear. We bonded. That means something. It does mean something, a new voice said. Everyone turned to the large screen on the wall, which had just activated. The image showed a Drachma, much larger than Baiyal, with deep blue scales and wise, ancient eyes. It means everything to my people. Elder Vorkash, Administrator Chin said respectfully, standing. Thank you for joining us. The Drachma elder bowed his head slightly. His voice was deep and resonant, with a musical quality. I have been listening to this discussion with great interest. I am Vorkash, speaker for the Drachma Council. I wish to see this human who saved one of our children. Jiho stood up slowly, Baiyal still on his shoulder. He faced the screen, his heart pounding. Vorkash studied them both for a long moment. His eyes focused on Baeyal, and he spoke in a language Jiho didn't understand. It was a series of melodic sounds, complex and beautiful. Baeyal responded, chirping and singing in the same language. The conversation lasted only a minute, but Jiho could feel the emotions flowing through Baeyal. Sadness, fear, but also something like recognition. She remembers us, Vorkash said finally, switching back to common language. But she is young, and her memories of home are fading. What she remembers most clearly now is you, human, your voice, your kindness, the feeling of safety you gave her when she had nothing. I didn't mean to take her from her people, Jiho said desperately. I just wanted to save her. And you did. You gave her the heart words she needed. You understood what even some of our own people forget, that a Drachma child needs more than food and shelter. They need to be seen, to be valued, to belong. Vorkash's gaze was penetrating. Tell me, human, what is your name? Jiho. Joe. Vorkash repeated, as if tasting the name. If we take this child from you now and bring her home, she will survive. She will be raised by our people, learn our ways, become who she was meant to be. But the bond you share will be broken. She will grieve. So will you. Is this what you want? Jiho felt tears burning his eyes. No, but I don't know what else to do. She needs to be with her own kind. She needs to know where she comes from. I can't give her that. You speak with wisdom beyond your years, Vorkash said. You put her needs before your own desires. This is the mark of a true guardian. What are you suggesting, Elder? Administrator Chen asked. I am suggesting a compromise, one that honors both the law and the sacred bond that is formed. Vorkash turned his attention back to Jiho. Jiho, would you be willing to bring her home yourself? To come to Drachma Prime and stay with us while she transitions to life among her own people? Jiho blinked in surprise. Stay on your world? For how long? A year, perhaps longer. You would live in our community. You would help her adjust. She would learn our ways while maintaining the connection to you that keeps her strong. Vorkash tilted his head. It would not be easy. Our world is very different from human stations. And at the end, you would still have to say goodbye. But it would be a gentler goodbye, one that gives her time to form new bonds while keeping the old one intact. What about my internship? Jiho looked at Hannah. What about my job here? Hannah smiled, and it was warm and genuine. The internship was only supposed to last 6 months anyway. This would be better. This would be real experience in xenocultural relations. I'll write you a recommendation that will open doors anywhere in the galaxy. And the Galactic Council would recognize this as official cultural liaison work, Administrator Chen added. It would actually advance your career significantly. Jiho looked down at Baeyal. She looked back at him with those golden eyes, so full of trust. What do you think? He whispered to her in Korean. Should we go on an adventure together? Baeyal's scales began to glow softly, and she made her happy purring sound. She understood enough to know they would stay together, at least for a while longer. I'll do it, Jiho said, looking back at the screen. I'll take her home. Vorkash's expression shifted into what might have been a smile. Then it is decided. We will prepare for your arrival. I look forward to meeting you in person, Jiho. You will be the first human to visit our world in over a century. It is an honor we do not grant lightly. The screen went dark. Director Quan looked like he wanted to argue, but Administrator Chen placed a hand on his arm. The Elder has spoken. The Drachma have accepted the solution. The matter is settled. Over the next week, preparations were made. The Galactic Council arranged transportation on a diplomatic vessel that was heading toward that sector of space. Myri helped Jiho pack his belongings, though she couldn't stop crying. I can't believe you're leaving, she said, wiping her eyes. We just became friends. I'll message you, Jiho promised, and I'll be back eventually. This isn't forever. But it's a year, maybe more. Myri hugged him tightly. Take care of yourself. And take care of her. I will. On the day of departure, half the station seemed to come to see them off. Captain Trevor gave Jiho a small device. This is a personal communicator. If you ever need help, use it. I will answer. Hannah gave him a thick folder of research materials. Everything I could find about Drachma culture and language. Study it during the journey. And Jiho, I'm proud of you. You're going to do great things. The diplomatic ship was large and comfortable. Jiho had his own cabin with a proper bed and a workspace. Bayal explored every corner of it, chirping with excitement. For the first few days of the journey, Jiho studied the materials Hannah had given him. He learned about Drachma history, their complex social structures, their art and music. He practiced speaking phrases in their language, though his human vocal cords couldn't quite reproduce the melodic tones correctly. Bayal seemed to find his attempts amusing. She would correct him gently, repeating the phrases until he got closer to the right sound. They were learning together. At night, Gio would stand at the observation window in his cabin and look out at the stars. Bayal would perch on his shoulder, her scales glowing softly in the darkness. He would speak to her in Korean, telling her about his hopes and fears for what lay ahead. I don't know what we'll find on your world, he admitted one night. I don't know if I'll fit in there, or if I'll be able to help you the way you need, but I promise I'll try my best. Bayal chirped softly and rubbed her head against his cheek. It was her way of saying she trusted him, no matter what. 3 months passed. The journey was long but peaceful. Jiho made friends with some of the diplomats on the ship. He learned more about the galaxy, about different cultures and species. He grew more confident in himself and in his ability to handle whatever came next. Finally, the ship's captain announced they were approaching Drachma Prime. Jiho carried Bayal to the observation deck, with other passengers gathering to see the planet. It was beautiful. The world was covered in thick green forests and massive mountain ranges. 3 moons orbited it, and rings of ice and rock sparkled in the sunlight. Jiho felt his breath catch. This was Bayal's home. This was where she came from. As they descended through the atmosphere, Bayal became more active. She chirped and sang, her scales glowing brighter than Jiho had ever seen. She was excited. He realized she could feel her homeworld calling to her. The ship landed in a clearing surrounded by enormous trees. A delegation of Drachma waited for them, including Elder Vorkash. He was even more impressive in person, easily the size of a small transport vehicle. Jiho stepped off the ship with Bayal on his shoulder. The air smelled different here, rich with plant life, and something else he couldn't identify. It felt alive in a way the space station never had. Vorkash approached slowly, bowing his head to them. Welcome to Drachma Prime, Jiho. Welcome home, little one. Bayal launched herself from Jiho's shoulder and flew, really flew for the first time, over to Vorkash. She was still small compared to him, but she circled his head, singing joyfully. Other young Drachma emerged from the trees, calling to her. Jiho felt a moment of panic. Was she leaving him already? But then Bayal flew back and landed on his shoulder, chirping at him as if to say, Come on, let me show you around. Elder Vorkash made a deep rumbling sound that might have been laughter. She wants you to meet everyone. Come, Jiho, your journey is just beginning. Jiho took a deep breath and walked forward into the forest, Bayal glowing on his shoulder, surrounded by dragons and strange new wonders. He didn't know what the next year would bring. He didn't know how hard it would be to eventually say goodbye. But right now, in this moment, he was exactly where he needed to be. He had spoken the words Bayal needed. He had given her safety and love and belonging. And now, together, they would find out what came next.